The police department had retired him at age 9 for hip dysplasia and the inability to complete the obstacle course in the required time. And the Sullivans had adopted him 3 weeks later not because they needed a retired police K-9, but because their daughter Faye had been asking for a dog for 2 years. And this one came with a track record. His name was Duke. He had been a narcotics detection specialist and had 3 departmental commendations and, according to the handler who had spent 7 years working beside him, the best working nose in the Tri-County K-9 unit. He had cost the department significantly less to adopt out than to continue housing, and he had cost the Sullivans a rehoming fee and a bag of prescription joint supplements per month. He was retired. He was still working. It started 10 days after the Sullivans moved into the new house. They had purchased a foreclosure, a project house, 3 bedrooms in a neighborhood that had been transitioning for 15 years. Without fully transitioning, the previous occupants had left quickly. The neighbor across the street had mentioned, conversationally, that the previous occupants had been asked to leave, which was how people in the neighborhood described what had happened without saying directly what had happened. Duke had been investigating the house from the day they moved in. Not the casual investigation of a dog in a new space, a specific methodical examination of the lower 6 inches of every wall in every room, conducted with the focused deliberateness of a professional at work. Teresa Sullivan had watched it and thought, "He is smelling the previous people." He spent 3 days on the basement. On the 4th day, he sat at the top of the basement stairs and would not come down. If you stay for stories about what animals sense before we do, you are in the right place. Subscribe so you do not miss the next one. Her husband, Robert, was a general contractor who had gutted and renovated 11 houses in 12 years and had a structural understanding of what basements contained. He went down and looked. He came back and said, "There's a section of the subfloor in the northeast corner that has been modified. Recent modification." Within the last 2 years, they called the police non-emergency line. An officer came and went into the basement and came back with a number. The modification in the subfloor concealed a compartment approximately 3 feet by 2 feet, accessible through a false panel. The compartment was empty. It had, however, been used. There were physical traces of materials the officer was cagey about describing specifically, though he wrote several things in a notebook and made several phone calls from the driveway afterward. The detective who came the next day was more forthcoming. He confirmed the compartment had been used for narcotic storage, a significant operation by the evidence of what the forensic team found on the surrounding surfaces. He said the previous occupants had moved voluntarily 1 step ahead of a warrant. He said the materials had been cleared, but the scent residue in the concealed space was, from a forensic standpoint, from a narcotics K-9 standpoint, apparently unmissable. Duke had been retired for the obstacle course. His nose had not retired. Has your dog ever done something that made no sense until it was the only thing that made sense? Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. Robert sealed the compartment permanently and poured a new concrete layer over the northeast section of the basement floor. The detective recommended professional remediation of the space, which they had done. The detective also said, not for the record, that if he could have borrowed their dog for a day, he would have. Faye was 4 years old. She called Duke her dog and had developed a specific bedtime ritual that involved Duke lying on the floor beside her bed while she explained the events of the day to him in chronological order. Duke attended these sessions with unfailing patience. He had spent 7 years in a K-9 unit. He knew how to listen to a report. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who never asked for anything in return. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. The family stayed in the house. They had bought it as a project, and they finished the project, new floors, new kitchen, fresh paint on every wall. The neighborhood was transitioning. The house was good. Duke took up his position in the hallway outside Faye's room each night, with the efficient purposefulness of a dog who had spent 9 years identifying what was wrong with a space and who had, in retirement, found a space worth protecting. Robert asked the former handler once over the phone whether narcotics dogs maintained their detection capability after retirement. The handler said they maintain it until they die. The drive fades a little without the work. The capability doesn't. He asked, "Is he still working your house?" The handler said, "Let him." He said, "The department spent 4 years building that nose and another 5 using it. You're getting all of it for a bag of joint supplements. Don't argue with it." Faye was 5 now and had started bringing Duke her books, sitting beside him on the floor and holding the pages up so he could look at the pictures. He examined each page with the precise, evaluating attention of a professional assessing evidence. He had opinions, she reported, about the illustrations. Robert watched them from the doorway some evenings. He had bought the dog for his daughter. He had not bought a retired specialist who had correctly identified a concealed drug compartment in his basement. He had gotten that anyway. He thought about this occasionally, about what you got when you adopted an animal with a working history, and about all the things they carried forward that no paperwork fully described.